I'm an outdoor person. I love being outside. And I think a lot of that is driven because of my desire to be authentic so much in my life. Especially when I made the decision to transition, being outside, I could go for hikes in remote locations and I could wear what I want and be authentic out there because chances were I wasn't going to run into anybody else. I think it's that way with quite a few LGBTQ individuals, being outdoors, finding a place that they can find peace. The trees don't judge you. Now, if people could only get better at doing that, it'd be a much better place to live in. I knew from an early age that I was different. Growing up though, elementary school in the 70s, didn't even have words to describe how I felt. I know that I felt more comfortable a lot of the time doing things with girls and being around girls than I ever did around more male-oriented things. But it was something that I never really, could put words to. Early in my life, it wasn't an issue. I remember in first grade at Lincoln Elementary that, the class pretty much divided itself between the boys and the girls, and I went with the girls. And I had no problem with that, and at the time, nobody else had a problem with it, and things were okay. Really in second grade when things kind of changed because the girls said, oh, well, you're a boy, yuck, we can't hang around with you anymore. And then the boys were like, well, you're different, we won't have anything to do with you either. And so it started a very odd time in my life. A lot of hiding my feelings and my thoughts because, I knew I didn't quite fit in. And I spent a lot of my early life that way. I was just a pretty normal kid, but, hid a lot of what my real thoughts were. It wasn't a topic of conversation, you could even have with your close friends to tell them, hey, do y'all ever think like this? And no. Puberty hit and it was just like, okay, what is going on? I'm not feeling the way I think I should or how my friends are telling me they feel. And that started becoming a really challenging time in my life. I didn't have words or language, there was no examples to understand. And I would start skipping school and I would take that time to do my hair and work on my makeup. And, I would steal various articles of clothing to wear. And I would be very happy for a while. And then I would have to get undressed before anybody got home. And then I'd get very, very sad. And I'd get really, really mad at myself and really hate myself for feeling the way that I felt. And that was a cycle of feeling happy, then hating myself for feeling happy, and then punishing myself, and then would do it all again. And so school, pretty much from junior high through high school, was a very challenging time. Continued to try to do, more male-oriented stuff. Joined the Army Reserve when I was in college and then went on active duty. Dated, got married, had kids. I guess I told myself that, okay, when I get married, all these thoughts and urges and stuff will go away. And yeah, didn't happen. It was only later on, after my second deployment to Iraq, coming back, that a lot of things changed. Me and my wife separated, and the first thing that happened when I got separated was I started, again, what I call now being more authentic. Dressing any chance that I get. Purchased wigs. Being in the military, you had to keep your hair cut short. What's really funny, so when I first started wearing female clothing out, I was so terrified. I was in Korea and I was going to a movie at night in dark, and I decided I'm gonna wear a pair of female jeans to the movie. Oh my, I was so scared and terrified. Somebody's gonna know, somebody's gonna find out. Looking back, and thinking that somebody's gonna look at my jeans and figure all this out was probably a little ridiculous, but you don't feel that way when you're going through it. I started getting more and more comfortable with myself and realizing that I am who I am. And, and I made that decision, in 2010 when all this was happening that, okay, I'm going to transition. We live in an age now where there's information that we just didn't have before. It was late 90s, I think, when I finally got internet at the house. The first thing I did was, when the ex-wife wasn't watching was, okay, trans. And oh my God, don't ever do that. Because the first thing that pops up, or at least at that time, was pornography type stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, that's not what I am. Later on, as things became more public, there was more information coming out, you know, you could learn more and hear more other people's stories and start to understand it's not this horrible thing that people have always made it out to be. That it's okay to be different, and that other people feel the same way as I did, and that was very powerful for me. Which is why I try to be very open and public now. You know, I would hate for a kid to grow up having the feelings of loneliness and outsider that I had to grow up with. I'm really very inspired by the younger generation and how so many of them at an early age now openly identify themselves and demand to have their rights and their freedoms. And it was very inspiring to me when I started coming out. To know that the younger generation, you know, was really leading the way, and now I feel it's my time to help in that as well. I am a Christian, and I attend church far more than regularly, pretty much as often as I can. It is a place that I find a lot of peace and feel closer to God. For a long time in my life, I let people run me away from church and run me away from God instead of listening to God's word and following that. I will never let another person take that away from me. I came out officially at the end of January last year, so it's been almost a year now that I officially was out. I had already started making plans by the end of January. I had already talked to my work, and they knew that it was coming. They didn't know that it was coming as fast as it ended up happening. Same thing, I had talked with my priest at church, and I think I told them all that it was going to be July because I had set a New Year's resolution of July 1st of coming out. So that made it till the end of January, and so poof, here I came out. And so, but you know, and I honestly expected to be run out of town. I'd say run out of town with pitchforks and torches. I had an escape plan because, you know, Southern West Virginia does not exactly have the best reputation for being tolerant and acceptance. That said, that hasn't been the case. I've had a few really minor negative interactions, but for the most part, I avoid those places. If you don't want my business, I'm perfectly fine with not giving you my business. Has kind of been my motto. There are so many more places that I've had positive experiences than places I've had negative. And it's a great feeling to feel like I live in a community where acceptance is possible. As the city's considering this new ordinance to protect the LGBTQ community, you know, I think it's important for them to understand that the community is accepting. The community wants to make everybody feel welcome. And for the most part, they do. This ordinance just formalizes what's already happening in the community.